what exactly does it take to build a brain? Welcome back to the Idea Supply Chain, where we take a look at where ideas come from and what makes them valuable. In today's episode, we're actually going to talk about where ideas come from, your brain, or more specifically, where I want ideas to start coming from, your submind that I'm building as part of my AI co-founder. So today I wanted to do a bit of a build in public update, showcasing some of the features that I've been building so you have a better idea of what's coming, because one of the things I'm trying to do is create an entire new category of app, an entire new architecture for the internet. And so there's a lot of things that I'm talking about that people just have no clue on. So let's take a look, shall we? Okay, so this is the new app. And if you haven't seen it lately or haven't seen it at all, it now has a very Twitter-esque interface. And so I created this as a way to make it easier for new users to kind of understand what's happening and how to use it. I think the idea of tweeting is very similar to just the idea of capturing thoughts, as long as you get rid of all the ideas of like building an audience and things like that. So that's at least the basic interface. And then instead of other users responding to your tweets or thoughts, what you have is you have a submind. And so this is like a personalized AI from the app. And what it does is it actually learns about you so that it can behave as closely as possible to you, not to the base model, because let's face it, does OpenAI's values and thoughts about the world match yours? No, probably not. Does Anthropic's do any of them? No, they're these large models that can be used for a number of different things. They're not specific to what you're doing or what you need. And so I have this onboarding chat that new users go to. And basically, this is where it gets the bulk of its information. So you tell it about yourself, what you're doing, what you care about, and you can actually have some really fascinating conversations with it. On production, I actually have an account that I've gone into some pretty good depth with it. And it really does a great job at capturing exactly what I'm trying to build. And that actually helps me clarify what it is that I'm telling people as I'm talking to them, whether it be investors or users or whatever, right? Okay, so once you go through the onboarding chat, you have kind of this Twitter-like interface again. And this is where some of the cool stuff is happening under the hood. So basically, if you kind of click around the edges of a thought, you go into these nested thoughts. And so the first thing I let it do is I had it research things. So basically, given a thought, if it thinks that it should do research, basically I give it a list of categories that it tries to pick from. And research was the first one I implemented. And so what it does is it goes and it actually figures out a bunch of questions to ask, and then looks at podcast episodes for answers to those questions. And the reason I chose podcast episodes is because I think there's actually a ton of really dense information in podcasts that you can access. And so I've been building on top of Arvid Kahl's PodScan, because that it's been a great API for me to easily send queries over, get podcast episodes back with transcripts so that I can actually answer, some of these questions that the submind has decided to ask based on whatever it is you said. And then so it compiles all these answers to all these questions and tries to create a report for you. Then I also I gave it the ability to basically just ask for more information. So respond. If it doesn't quite understand what it's supposed to do, it'll just ask you a question. And that's going to be a really important thing in the future. But for right now, it usually just happens if the AI has absolutely no idea what you're talking about, because you didn't give it enough context that it couldn't infer the context from any related thoughts. Then there's the action piece, which I think is pretty fascinating. And so what I've started doing is basically I look at whether it's either like a short-term task or a long-term task. And short-term in this case, meaning something that can be completed in like a single motion, right? Or a single task. And right now, if it thinks it's a simple task like that can just be completed in kind of one step, it says, hey, I've noted that, great, keeping track of that, but doesn't actually do anything yet because I haven't built any of the tools that allow it to take various actions. That's going to come later as I start figuring out what people want to do. So it's going to be a lot of on-demand building. And then there's the longer tasks. And so what I said is if there's a long-term task, the first thing that I can do, because it's based off of kind of the earlier version, is create an action plan. And so what this does is it breaks down the thing into steps. And so I was joking around about building out antisocialmedia.network, which I actually bought the domain for because I do have a plan there. You might be able to figure it out from this video based on what I've talked about, but we'll see. And so I asked it to like design a landing page. And so what it did is it actually like broke that down into a bunch of steps. And it's also like taking this plan and creating tasks for it. And what I'm going to have it do is I'm actually going to give it the ability to set metrics. So like it can do something and then say, this is a metric for success. And so if we look down here, I actually have it. So it's tracking these metrics, right? And what it's going to eventually have the ability to do is say, hey, this is the metric I want to look at. And then periodically ask the user for those metrics. And so what that does is it creates a feedback loop where it can get metrics from systems that it can't actually see. Can give you the work that you need to like put into an external system. And you can feed data back into it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be connected to that system. Obviously, long-term, it'd be great to have all these integrations, but for systems that don't integrate or aren't easy integrations, this is a perfectly good way to do it because it's still going to save you a lot of time in trying to figure out what's important to actually look at in terms of metrics. And so that's one piece of it. The next piece that I think is cool is actually the idea of a reflection task. And so what this does is it allows the AI to, the submind, to be able to tell you what it knows about you. And so I think this is important because I want the user to have the ability to change what the submind knows about them. It's supposed to align with who they are and who they want to be. And so if it learns something wrong, this mechanism actually will just give it the ability to, show the user what it thinks the user is like. And that lets it do some, I think just some really cool things and makes it very transparent. I don't want this to be something where it's like creepy and like learning about you and selling your data off. No, it's learning about you as a way to behave in the way that you would behave and do the things that you would do so that you don't actually have to do them. I want to save you work if you're using this tool. I want to save you time. I want to save you energy. I want to save you focus. I want you to put things in here that you don't want to worry about. Because I think there's just a lot of really powerful things that can come out of that that will really be able to benefit the user. Also, just a couple small things I did. Basically, I made it so when you click in, it just copies all the text. I kept wanting to copy and paste. But the way I had it, like I couldn't actually like click in without going into the link. So I had to modify that. That's a little nicer. Also didn't have a back button. So now that's fixed. So little things like that, but really excited where this is heading. May have some big news soon. We'll see what's going on. Got a couple things in the works that are very, very cool based on like this architecture. As more people are kind of starting to see the usefulness of it. It can basically be used in all sorts of places because everybody thinks about stuff, right? And when you start collecting thoughts and using that as a data source that's constantly changing and evolving, as opposed to like a static Notion page or something like that, where people have to like go and read, this makes it much more focused and living, and without the need to spend a ton of time creating a page that nobody looks at. Because basically it just captures all these little thoughts. And then when it needs to, it can combine all of that stuff into a document that's actually usable. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that look at things, and excited to show you where they're going. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.